Recording in progress.
Welcome to the second season of the now Strategos podcast. Strategos is a Greek term which roughly translated means generalship, and it is part of the origin of the English word strategy. My name is Britton Jacobson. I own a few entrepreneurship endeavors, work a full-time W-2 job, and enjoy learning. I appreciate you being here. Let's get into the episode. All right, cool. Well, Hailey, it's nice to connect with you. So basically, to give a little bit, I'll give my version of a background and then we'll, get yours, obviously. So we both went to Patrick Henry. I graduated in 2016. You graduated in 2018, I think, right?
Yes.
And so I think you're about 2 years behind me or whatever in graduation. But we ended up, you also did the SI program, correct?
Yes, I did.
Okay, yeah. So at Patrick Henry, for those who don't know, the main focus of the college is kind of like pre-law, and most people that go there, that's what they care about. But there's a substantive part of the people or the students that go there that do the government, and then the track is strategic intelligence, which is kind of like analyst related work pertaining to, in theory, starting to work as an analyst for like an intelligence agency of some sort or somewhere in the government. A lot of students who go through with that often end up doing something completely different. I'm certainly a poster child for that. And to a certain extent, I think you are as well.
Yes.
So I wanted to start by kind of like starting in college a little bit. What made you go to PHC, and why did you pick the SI program? And I know you've covered this a little bit in some other conversations and whatnot you've had, but I wanted to, as someone who went there and went through the program, I wanted to ask myself.
Sure. Well, I picked Patrick Henry because there were only a few schools in the country that had the global security intelligence kind of leaning. I also applied to Embry-Riddle down in Arizona and got in there, but it was not a Christian school. And I kind of like the smaller school feel of Patrick Henry. So that's why I went there. And the reason I wanted to do national security, I'm not really sure, but I guess my family says I have a heart for justice. And when I was little, I'd always see the kid in the corner all alone, and I feel so bad for them. And I just want to like bring him in and protect him and include him. And I guess that's kind of, along with the theme of justice and protection and, taking care of people. And I thought that the global security strategic intelligence track was the way to go with that.
That's funny that you say all that, because I had a slightly different approach. I didn't know what I wanted to do in college or in high school relative to college, because I had so many different interests. But then I finally settled on this kind of, basically my plan was to do paramilitary counterterrorism. And so because I went through like a Western Civ course that started covering terrorism, and it like captured my sense of justice, and I was like, I want to be able to be in a position where I can say no to this, very physical manifestation of evil. And it spoke to me on that level because of the sense of justice. And then I also was basically choosing between Patrick Henry and Embry-Riddle, but I only applied to Patrick Henry mostly because they had their program was more established and a little bit older. Mm-hmm. So that was like the main deciding factor. But I also like the idea of the smaller school or whatnot. So anyway, that's funny that we had some similar thoughts there.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. I wonder how many students actually like go to pursue the track. Now that I think about it, I wonder how many students kind of pursue that track from that sense of justice standpoint versus like I want to work for the CIA because I've always wanted to or something.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, I knew going into Patrick Henry that global security and intelligence is not like it is in the movies. I mean, that's like so cool, but that's just not real. So thankfully I had that mindset going in.
True. Yeah. I think I wanted, part of the paramilitary pursuit aspect of it was I wanted to get as close to the movies as I could. But I knew that the intelligence piece wasn't, I wanted to get an idea of kind of how the system worked before I was just like kind of boots on the ground being told what to do.
Yeah.
So that was the strategy. But okay. So in college, and we barely interacted in college, if at all. I was trying to remember. I feel like we might have said a couple sentences to each other. I was like living off campus. I was doing my own thing, even just in general, relative to my own class and whatnot.
Mm.
So I wasn't super plugged in. And so I'm sure that contributed. But I have this, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I have this sense that you were like a little quieter of an operator.
Oh yeah.
You had a more withdrawn, not in a bad way, but a more withdrawn personality, which I feel like is somewhat at odds with, I watched a couple of like videos and things that where you're talking about what you're doing now, which I feel like is somewhat at odds with this currently, talking with me, vivacious to a certain extent, Hailey. So I'm curious about that and like what kind of as much as you are open to chatting about it, like what the driving factors and whatever were to that. And if that was something you developed in college, you came into college with that, like kind of what the deal is there.
Sure. Yeah. So in high school, I was very gregarious, very outgoing, had a lot of friends. I was the president of our little Christian co-op. I was homeschooled, but
Yeah,
so,
as
yeah.
were most PhDers, at least till now.
Were you homeschooled?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah. Well, you don't look like it, so that's good.
Yeah, that's like every homeschooler's dream is like take pride in being homeschooled, but not look like it. So
Yeah. Oh man. I've had so many people. Anyways, I don't want to sidetrack too much, but I went to this one church and I was walking past this guy and the topic of conversation on the pulpit versus kids, he said, homeschoolers suck. And I was like, thanks. Just kept walking and I was like, why would people think that? Anyways, so I was very gregarious in high school, then college hit, and Patrick Henry, like the course load was intense. And I didn't know anyone back in Virginia. So no family, no friends, no one at the school that I had been friends with before. And everyone seemed so smart, like they had it all together. And I was kind of like pulling my hair out. And freshman year was really, really hard. I didn't even have a car, so I was stuck on campus like all the time. And my roommate, I wasn't used to living with a roommate, and so I kind of retreated into myself a little bit, and people called me a hermit. But I would watch movies in my closet because I needed some alone time. I know, it's so bad. But yeah, I guess the course load, maybe new experience. Yeah.
okay. Are you, I, to some extent or another, I wanted to ask, which I'll tie it in, but I wanted to ask relative to the sense of justice, seeing a kid in a corner sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like, do you find that you are relatively empathetic or relative, or even just maybe emotionally intelligent? Cause like there's different takes on empathy, but are you someone who takes on other people's emotions, other people around you, or and feels like other people's emotions strongly? Or are you someone that just happens to be good at, like being empathetic for someone and how they might be feeling? Like what's kind of the breakdown there?
That's a really good question. I don't know if I'm very empathetic. I'm definitely not a very compassionate person, which is not good because God calls us to love people and be compassionate. I do have a heart for people that are really struggling, though. Like if there are true, deep struggles that people are going through, then I'm a little bit more compassionate. But if there are like millennials that are, oh my gosh, I had to spend a half hour in traffic today, I'm like, get over it. So yeah, I guess it depends on the situation that the person is in, where I can be a little bit empathetic.
Gotcha. Okay. So then I wanted to tie that into being at college. Would you, before you were gregarious, I would assume you would have described yourself more as an extrovert, or were you just a happy introvert with a lot of friends? And then did you just become more introverted at college? Like, how would you describe that element of who you were at the time?
Yeah, I think I was an extrovert in high school. I took the Myers-Briggs test and everything. So,
Yes.
it says I was an extrovert. And then I became an introvert. I took the Myers-Briggs again, became an introvert in college. So I don't, yeah, eh, I guess it just kind of switched based on circumstances.
That's that's amazing. Only because, well, changes are good. But anyway, it's funny to me because in high school, I was the same way. I led all the things. I was the one organizing all the things, had the group of kids, very much the leader, asking my parents every day. Like I was the little kid, like at 4, 5, 6 years old, would wake up at like 5:30 and run in my parents' bedroom and be like, "What are we doing today, Mom?" Like that's the kid that I was, right?
Uh-huh.
um, and so, but then I got to college in the first semester. I was very much, I was going to the volleyball games and like doing all the things, engaging. And then I was at like a table and there was a group of people at the table and some very idiotic things were expressed and said. And it totally turned me off. And I was like, all right, that's it. I'm done. And so like from that moment, I like forged my own path. I had like my small group of friends. And if people wanted to come interact with me, I was totally fine, happy to have a conversation. But I was done sitting at big tables doing the extrovert thing.
Mm.
And that kind of defined like the rest of my experience there in a lot of ways. And I became way more introverted. Like I've lived by myself the last many, many years now. And it's just like, I like doing my own thing and I enjoy being with people. I still get energy from it, like an extrovert would, but my fuse is just way shorter.
Yeah. Well,
And so, and then like the course load piece is interesting because I think at PHC, a lot of people have this, I have to do all the coursework and I have to keep up with all the different things. And I ended up taking, and I don't know if this is like an inherent personality thing or what it is, but I did the kind of like tackling 70% that got me 80, 90% of the way there. And
mm,
so like my grades were fine, but they weren't like as great as they could have been if, I was giving it my all. And I never pulled an all-nighter. I never stayed up past like, I think 11 or so, 10 or 11 for school. I stayed up later, like having a conversation with a friend or something a couple times. And then I worked all the time. Like I would work 20 to 40 hours a week. I think my average was like 30. So like, yeah,
I can
that's what I
imagine.
was doing. While other people were doing school, I was working and, and then I kind of did again, I would do like 70% of the work to get, B's and A's or whatever. But yeah, it
Man, that
was
sounds like a lot.
definitely a different approach. So yeah, I know
Wow.
what you mean. Okay, so you graduate with your SI degree. At what point did you start to take a step back looking at SI stuff?
Well, I did go into the SI field. So I went like less than a week or two after I graduated. I started work. I worked at the Fusion Center in Seattle. So the fusion centers were created after 9/11 to fuse information from the CIA, FBI, military, et cetera, police
Kind of
officers.
an information aggregator
Yeah,
agency.
exactly. So I worked there for a year. I got my TSSCI clearance, which was like a big accomplishment.
What was it like your technical title?
I was, I guess you could say, an intelligence analyst.
Okay. And what was your job? What were you supposed to be doing?
Yeah. um, I did a lot of special event threat assessments. So
Okay.
I would look at past attacks from people in our country and see where our security was kind of failing in certain areas. And I would kind of give advice or at least tell people in the military or police officers to be aware of these certain things for these special events like concerts and like the anyways, I won't get into too many details, but I would kind of tell them to be aware of these things. I would also on a daily basis brief the military and the three-letter agencies and stuff on some of the world happenings that were going on in the area, specifically terrorist related. and just some other things like that. I went to like Amazon and kind of worked with Microsoft and Amazon and Boeing and about some security related stuff as well, and had some DEA training. And it was pretty broad.
Cool.
So yeah.
Got it. Okay. So you did that for a year.
Yes.
Then what happened?
Well, very, very interesting. So my contract was up for renewal, and I was kind of like, okay, what do I do? Do I want to?
Were you contracted as an independent contractor with a third party, or were you working specifically for an agency at the location?
I was with a third party. So I was, yeah, I technically wasn't, a Fusion Center employee, but I worked there full time, 40 hours a week, right there in the FBI building in Seattle. So
got it. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, it's just the taxes were different.
Yep.
So yeah, my contract was up for renewal, and I was just kind of taking it day by day. I was like, Lord, what do you want me to do? Because my commute into Seattle was an hour and a half one way, hour and a half back, and it was just, it was intense. I was kind of getting a little tired, and all day, every day,
too much alone time.
Yeah, too much alone time. I made it through the whole Bible again on the bus like twice, which is great. But then my mom kind of got sick. She's good now, but she got sick, and she was working for my dad, and she needed someone to replace her working for my dad. And within like a few hours, on that last day, kind of before the contract was up for renewal, I was like, okay, Lord, direct me. And he pulled me out of the Fusion Center and put me in mom's position in that day, that very day. And so I've been kind of working for Veritas Forensic Accounting and Economics ever since.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I love it how there's been a number of things in my life that played out to kind of like, I'm on my last severance check or whatever. And like, that's the day I started the new job. And it's just like things like that, that are blessings. So, but it's hard to keep your cool, prior to that. So,
yeah,
it's definitely a difficult lesson in patience. So
for sure. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm curious then, did your dad start the company?
Yes. So there's two. So I work for Veritas Forensic Accounting and Economics full time. I also work for the Veritas Foundation part time.
Yes, which is the newer-ish venture, right? Basically.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Yeah, we started that basically early 2020, the foundation.
Yeah.
And then the accounting company has been going on for like 11 years or so.
Okay. And did your dad start the accounting company?
Yes. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. And what sort of accounting in it is it? Because you've got the forensic piece in there, which sounds more, movie-esque than, maybe traditional accounting.
Yeah.
Does that play a large role in what you guys are doing, or do you offer both sorts of services? What's kind of the plug and play?
Yeah. So we're not typical accountants, I guess. You could say we're not like tax accountants, every year, April 15th. But so forensic accounting, what I learned is, so we take businesses that have lost money due to fires, or like a fire damaged their building and they lost a ton of products. And then we see, okay, how much money did they lose? We also work with the Department of Justice on some things, employee fraud or something, and we see how much the employees stole, and not specifically from the Department of Justice, because they, but they hire different things for different companies. Yes, so yep. Definitely how much money people lost from certain things that happened that were bad.
Gotcha. Okay. And so then what's your full-time role within that? Because your title, I think, is like accounting analyst technically, right? So are you working on those projects? Are you interfacing with clients and customers? Are you in the weeds? Like, what's kind of the breakup of it?
Yeah, kind of pretty much all of that. I do manage the books for the company too, so a little bit of administrative side.
So April 15th does come up.
Yeah. Yeah, not fun, but it's okay. I do what I can. um, and yeah, so I'm definitely kind of helping out with a lot of these projects and lots of Excel spreadsheets and looking at payroll details or expenses and revenue and all that. So lots of math.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Do you like it? How does it compare to the SI piece of your background?
Well, it's a lot more mild. There's only one case where we had someone that's shot and there are pictures of blood and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a relief that there's only been one case like that over the years, because back at the Fusion Center, you see, really bad things happening all day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was getting nightmares and everything. It was bad. And so now I like math. So I like working on spreadsheets, and I can work from home, which is really nice. And don't have to commute 3 hours a day. So I really, really like it.
Got it. That's very cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I wish I was better at spreadsheets. So
I don't know if it's okay that I ask this, but what do you do today and nowadays?
no, it's 100% okay. That's one of my favorite parts of podcasting is like actually turning it into a conversation. So,
Oh, good.
yeah. So I do a lot of things. My most recent job was I was hired by a company that does lead gen in long distance moving. And basically I was hired by the co-founders they had some capital and they wanted to start a new company or buy a new company. So I was hired by them to come in and basically be the person that spearheaded that. And so at the beginning, my job was kind of going through a few things they were doing within their company, like their customer capture quiz and whatnot that they have on their website, their Facebook marketing campaign and stuff. And then from there, it was basically looking at like 150 different businesses online, like which of these are interesting, would be interested in buying any of these, yes, no, very superficial level, but basically just scanning them and pulling out, I don't know, 20, 25 or so, having a conversation with the main co-founder I was working with about, are we interested in any of these? Yes, no. Cause I didn't really care. I was just there to kind of operate. And they ended up saying no to like all the different ones that even they came up with. And we came back to building a moving brokerage, which is basically like if you're trying to move long distance, instead of it, you're never talking to the person that moves your stuff. You're talking to a company that basically is better at marketing, that captures your interest, and then they sell you a move and then they sell it to the carrier underneath them at a discount or a profit or whatever. So basically the idea was to build a moving brokerage with a tech stack so we could move 80, 90% of the sale online instead of having to what the current industry model is across the board, which is have salespeople from wherever harass you all day long on the phone. So, and there might be 4 or 5 carriers all having their salespeople call you, sort of thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And they don't talk to each other. So even once you booked, you still are, saying, no, hey, stop calling me. So that was the idea. And basically we got to kick off. We had marketing campaign or Facebook marketing campaign. We had the initial tech stack and whatnot all in place in the landing page, which, I was designing it and whatever. I don't make it look pretty. I just kind of put the parts in there and then someone else makes it look nice. But, and then the supply chain disruption finally trickled down and basically like kind of cut margins out from underneath this, because all the good carriers that move things, they switched from moving personal belongings to moving freight because they get paid more and it's way less hassle than somebody's house. And then all of the garbage carriers who might sell your stuff out from under you were also then charging you, exorbitant rates because that's what the market is currently. So basically they kind of put the whole company on ice and gave me severance, which is what I'm on now. And so that's like my technical job. I have different projects like the podcast. I have the Chosen Candle Company, which is like handmade candles that I make in my kitchen right now. I need to outsource it because I don't enjoy that anymore, but basically it's a handmade candle company called Chosen Candle, and we donate like 10% of profits to anti-human trafficking. Speaking of, did you work on the anti-human trafficking, like border security alert and the human trafficking one at Patrick Henry, like the special project?
Yeah, I think I did border security alert at least for
Okay.
years.
I was the one that started the human trafficking one, so that's why I was curious.
Cool.
Yeah. So anyway, so I have that, though it's been like kind of on the third or fourth back burner. I'm doing like a 98-day thing, which like starts today actually, but to like give it like a real good swing for the fences, because there's been like good spots and then like low spots and then good spots. Like, all right, I got to make this serious or not. So anyway, working on that. And then I'm doing a couple like contracting or consulting kind of roles for a couple different people and different companies who are looking to scale their operations. It's like one's a podcaster trying to solve YouTube content strategy, Instagram content strategy, and kind of getting a writer for their script for their podcast. So basically said, hey, I'll help you because he's a cool guy and he's got cool connections.
Huh.
And I really like interacting with him. And then there's another guy who runs a Twitter content agency. So he basically writes tweets for people to drive their growth. And right now he's like doing most of, 90% of the work himself. And it's not sustainable. B, he wants to scale. So basically coming in and being like, all right, like what sort of, do we use ClickUp to organize the project management of the content writers? And then how do we create consistency and, manage contracts and stuff. So I'm doing a couple of things like that while I, apply to jobs and whatever else. So yeah.
Wow, you're juggling a lot of things.
Yeah, definitely. It's I still have, I might be more introverted, but I still have like the extroverted, or I don't know, the personality driven need for action. So I try and fill up my time with it.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's good. You could kind of turn it off and turn it on, and you could be extroverted when you need to.
Yeah, I get to have the conversations I want to have. Like,
yeah, there you go.
So
awesome. Really interesting. That's kind of cool. It's God's kind of opening and closing doors, and you just keep going through it.
I've been on if you look at, like, you can look me up on LinkedIn or whatever, and it's like my background has been so different, and like from security to a startup graduate school where I still got my master's, but I don't obviously use it. And then I went to director of facilities and operations for an ed tech company. And I've just been pivoting. Hopefully the next few years should kind of, consolidate a little bit, all of the diversity. But it makes applying to jobs very interesting, because it's, HR is typically looking for someone who's like done the same thing for 5, 10, 15 years or whatever. It's like, well, I've done a lot of different things.
So, that's good. I mean, college only teaches you so much. Then you kind of have to have experience in other things too. So I think that's good.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
Okay. So your foundation.
Yes.
Where did the idea come from? And then what is the foundation about?
Yes. Okay. So my dad is friends with this man at Bible study, and this man at Bible study named Ken, he lived in Bo, Sierra Leone, West Africa. So Africa, I'm going to try to do it from your perspective. Okay. Africa is like that. Sierra Leone is like right there.
Okay.
So yeah, Bo, Sierra Leone, West Africa. And he lived there for a year, and he worked at an orphanage back there that was kind of sponsored by a company in America.
Okay.
When he worked at the orphanage there, he became friends with the director of a blind school in Bo right there. And the blind school wasn't getting any help really from.
And by blind school, I assume you mean School for the Blind.
Yes, exactly. Okay. School for the blind. Yeah, school for all the kids there are blind.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we just saw like the huge need to help all these kids, because they're emaciated and they don't have any food and they're falling asleep in class, and their health is really poor. And so he and my dad are kind of brainstorming about, can we get churches to donate to this and all that? So we reached out to a few different churches, and the churches kept saying, no, we can't do that because you're not a 501c3. So Dad told me one day, Hailey, you're starting a 501c3. I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. So I tried to fill out all the paperwork with the IRS. And of course, I had some help, thankfully. And we started the foundation, and a lot of churches have been donating. So that's good.
That's awesome. Okay. So your title is executive director. Are you doing all of the things within the foundation, or has it gotten to the point where you have help? And what's kind of, again, the breakdown of that?
Yeah. So I manage the books again for the foundation.
Well, you must be so good at it that it's like, you might as well, right?
Yeah. I like QuickBooks. It's fun. So,
Yes.
but yeah, so I do a lot of work, but Ken, he does like pretty much 90% of it. So he's kind of our project manager for Sierra Leone. So
Okay.
he sends money back there for building projects. We built a kitchen for the blind school. And just as an example like that, and then he kind of sends the expense report to me and I fill it out. And yeah, so.
Got it. Okay. And when it comes to, we'll get into the details of the location and whatnot, but yeah, relative to the raising of money and the 501c3 status and stuff, what sort of things, what does that relationship with churches look like? Do you guys have a program in place that you stick to? Like what does fundraising look like and how is it organized?
Oh, that's a good question. It's so hard. Fundraising is so difficult. So I actually am in the process. So I changed to a different church recently. And
you as in you personally, or this pertains to the foundation?
Me personally.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to a membership class to become a member, and then I'll meet with the pastor, hopefully, of that church, like we've done for other churches in the past, and ask him, hey, can you help us out here? This is what we're doing. This is where we need help. And these other churches in the past have committed to giving a certain amount monthly each year. So that's kind of what I'm hoping to do with this new church.
Gotcha. And how do you feel about the process of asking for money and having that conversation?
Oh man, I told the Lord, guide me to do anything you want me to do except ask people for money. And he obviously had other plans.
He's like, I'm so glad that you and I agree on what you should be working on right now.
Yeah, exactly. I worked so hard, and then now it's something completely different.
That's always the way it goes.
Yeah. Thankfully, it's in God's hands, so that's what matters. But yeah, it's hard. A lot of my friends, a lot of like millennials these days do not donate. They don't tithe, they don't donate. So it's hard for me to make friends and be genuine friends. And then the foundation is like my greatest joy, and they don't ask about that because it's uncomfortable, because they don't want me
they don't give.
Exactly. It's so difficult. So a lot of our support comes from older people. So Dad reaches out to his friends, and Ken reaches out to his friends in the churches and all that. So that's been a blessing. And I try to deal with more of the social media side at this point. So that's very difficult. I have never been on social media except for the last year or two. So I was trying to learn everything. It's hard.
Gotcha. Okay. Does it bother you that there's this reticence relative to giving, or is it more just like hey, even if you're not doing it, you should be mature enough to engage in conversation regardless?
That's another, you keep asking great questions. It does bother me a lot. Now, if they're giving to other things, that's fine. And I can't ask them, well, are you donating? You know, like, are you tithing? Because the Bible, God makes it so clear, you know, give of the first fruits, tithe 10%, you know, and if you're not listening to that, then what are you doing? I mean, are you just looking at the Bible as purely symbolic? I mean, how can you take that as symbolism? So it does bother me a little bit, but I want to have friends, and I don't want to keep asking them for money, and yeah, so it's hard.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Interesting. Okay. We might circle back to that, but all right. So tell us more about Sierra Leone and some of the work that you've been up to, and that's, you know, some of the stories and things like that.
Okay. So Sierra Leone, back in the 1980s, I'll kind of give a brief history.
History is super important. Yes.
Okay, good. So in the 1980s, there was a ton of conflict with the trade in illicit gems, which is gold, aluminum, and diamonds, blood diamond. Leonardo DiCaprio, you know, the great movie. And so it's very true. It's also based on history. So the conflict from the 80s over those gems stemmed a civil war that happened between 1991 to 2002. And about 50,000 people died in that civil war. And I mean, you'll walk around the streets of Bo and see people without their arms or their legs, and because they lost it in the Civil War, which is really sad. And so Sierra Leone has been struggling a little bit from that conflict, from the diamonds and the gold and all that. And I was looking up some statistics on the World Bank, and the World Bank says, you know, generally people of the world are kind of coming out of poverty, but in sub-Saharan Africa, which is where Sierra Leone is, by 2030, the World Bank says 90% of the world's population of poor people will be in sub-Saharan Africa. So it's going to get worse for Sierra Leone.
Is that how that math works out? Or is that just to say that the rest of the world is going to continue to get better at a rate that is faster or higher than Sierra Leone? Therefore, and at that time, 2030, 90% of said poor people will be in Sierra Leone.
That makes sense. So yeah, as the world progresses and gets, you know, wealthier, I guess generally,
yeah,
Sierra Leone is in sub-Saharan Africa is going to be stuck.
Yes. Which is, I'm only curious because I'm interested specifically and want to make sure I understand. So, which is not necessarily the exact same as saying it'll get worse. It's just that it's not necessarily getting better, right?
Exactly.
Basically. Yeah. Got it. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I guess I could phrase that better.
and what is the driving factor for that? As far as you guys can tell, obviously, you know, sitting in our plush American homes.
Yeah. A lot of people in Africa that I've talked to and that I've read, they say that it's due to poor leadership, poor government leadership, and corruption. So, you know, when I landed in Sierra Leone and I was struggling making through customs, and they said, you know, give a little money and I'll get you through. And I said, I actually don't have money. I didn't exchange it yet. I mean, I have some chocolate. And they're like, okay, I'll take it. And they put me through. So the corruption is huge there, which is sad.
How do you guys at the foundation handle the disbursement of the money that's going into that place into a corrupt environment? Like, how does that, I assume the people running the school are probably, you know, good people and whatnot. But then I am sure as soon as you step outside of that, the people they're contracting to build the kitchen and whatever else may or may not be, and in all likelihood are not. So how do you guys manage against that? Like, or do you leave that to the people on the ground to a certain extent? Like, how does that, how do you guys interact with that reality?
Mhm. So Ken he goes to Sierra Leone frequently throughout the year. His next trip is going to be 3 months, and he's going to stay there. Um, so he provides kind of a little bit of accountability. We send the money back to people that are kind of independent. So if there's a project for the blind school, we have a pastor friend back there who we send the money to, and he pays for the blind school and sends us receipts and sends us pictures. And so we have kind of a physical evidence of that the money's spent. And then we go back there often to keep track that it is spent well. So, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Mhm.
All right. And so how many kids are at the school currently? And where do the kids come from? Are they being dropped off? Is this a known spot for, a kid if you're blind? Are they local? Are they coming from around the area? Like what's the kid situation?
Yeah. So we have about 48 kids there at the blind school, and they are mostly in Bow, but some of them are from Kenema, which is, I guess, about an hour away. So it is kind of a well-known school.
Okay.
Um, and a lot of the kids have come, okay, so since poverty is so prominent there in Sierra Leone, a lot of parents can't provide for their kids. And when their kids go blind, they doubly can't provide for their kids because there's not a system in place for kids to thrive with disabilities in the career field. So, for example, this one kid, Mohammed, he's a Christian now, but he was born into a family and he had his vision when he was born, and he started to go blind at, I believe, the age of 6. And his dad freaked out because he thought his son was going blind because of witchcraft and voodoo is a very prominent thing back there. Yeah.
Yep.
And so he beat up Muhammad and took one of his eyes out and left him at the school. And so we get a lot of kids who've been neglected by their families there at the school.
Hello. I hate to interrupt this episode and this awesome conversation, but if you have just a few seconds, do you mind hitting the like button and subscribing if you're watching this on YouTube, hitting that notification bell? And then if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or something along those lines, then please take the same time and just hit the follow button. I would love to have you be a permanent part of this journey. And that's all I have. Let's get right back at it. Is there anything in particular about or relative to the environment that causes the kids to go blind? Like, is it the water source, or is it just like natural? I don't have no idea what the percentage of people who are blind in anywhere is. So is it like just a function of said society that X number of, X percentage of individuals are blind, or is there something specific that drives the condition?
I I don't know the exact percentage, but definitely more people are blind back there than there are here. And I believe that it's from the water source. A lot of the sun exposure aggravates a lot of, their eyesight kind of going bad because the sun is so prominent there, it seems like. And genetics, of course, and just the nutrition, lack of good nutrition. So there are a lot of contributing factors back there. Environment, mostly.
Gotcha. And so what are the kids learning at the school? What's being provided? What's happening at the school?
Yeah. So
I'm going to add an asterisk. What is the balance between just providing life and whatnot versus carrying and obviously it's different than if one was to go through the same circumstances in our society. So I understand that. But what is the balance between providing basic, life and sustenance and whatever, and kind of caring for these kids who have gone through and come from these often horrific circumstances emotionally and whatnot?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it's very difficult. So generally, we just have a general. They just learn generally a general education, and when they grow older and phase out of the blind school at about age 18, we have a partnership with the Sierra Leone Association for the Blind that teaches them career building skills specifically for blind people. So that's great. So they kind of have that with a general education, they kind of have experience for the career field and they can have jobs. When it comes to them lacking family structure, it's one of the struggles that we're dealing with right now is all the girls are in one room and all the boys are in another room. And these two girls keep waking up at night screaming because they had nightmares because their parents abandoned them or their parents were killed some way. And they're scaring all the other little girls and they don't have anyone to go to for help and comfort when they're alone in the dark at night, and so I mentioned the pastor a couple minutes ago, and so as we develop a relationship with the pastor, friendship with the pastor, he has two youth leaders, Kemo and Aminata. Aminata's a girl and Kemo's a guy, and Aminata she can shield these girls from the things of the world and kind of be an older sister to them and kind of help be a family for these kids. And when we go back there, we're there comforting the kids, and they have little voice recorders because they can't read anything, and they asked me to sing "Jesus Loves Me" into their voice recorder so they can listen to me singing to them at night when they go to sleep. And we try to be a family for them when we can, and we have the pastor team that comes in and they're a family for them too.
That's very precious.
Yeah. They're so cute.
That's very cool. Okay. So what is the vision for the school? And mostly as it pertains to, well, let me ask it this way. Is the school kind of operating? You said the school was, your dad was aware of the school, or Ken was aware of the school prior to the foundation existing. So are you guys getting more plugged into the specific, I don't know if running of the school, but directing of the school, or is the school very independent and you're just, providing financial backing and then obviously whatever moral and emotional support that you can as you're over there and have connections?
Well, we're kind of becoming more financially involved. So the school was operating fine, kind of, without us. There were dogs and chickens and goats that were running all around the campus and leaving, messes in the classrooms, and the kids are blind and they just step on it and they get sick, and they get malaria. There weren't any screens on the windows or their beds, and so they get sick there, and there wasn't enough food for them, and so lacking nutrition there. And a lot of the classroom tiles were broken and they're stepping on and hurting their feet, and they don't have any running water, so the kids would have to somehow go out of the blind school and walk down the street with buckets over their heads and navigate while they're blind. I don't know how they do that. That's just amazing to me. And go and bring water back, 30 pounds of water on their head. I don't know how they do that. And they were falling asleep in class and getting sick. And a lot of them, we wanted to introduce them to Christ. And the director of the school was a Christian, but we didn't feel like the kids were understanding, the full joy of knowing God if they wanted to. So we kind of reached out to the blind school and said, what do you guys need help with? What do you want from us? How can we, bless you? And so they had some things like, oh, please, we need more food, or, we need bed nets and all this stuff. And so we just started helping, and we're bringing in trucks of water for them so they don't have to go outside, and build a kitchen and a laundry area and showers and all this stuff. And we have we partnered with a local hospital so that the kids have free health care. And so we're just, I don't know, it seems to be going really well. And all the kids ages 12 and up asked to be baptized. So we baptized them all, which is great. So
nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say, what are your ministry with the human trafficking and all that? I mean, is there like a certain organization that you give to, or?
Right now, I mean, it's super baby company, but the two organizations that we support is the International Justice Mission and the OUR Rescue, underground Operation Underground Railroad Rescue. So I don't know if you've heard of them. They're like kind of they're a slightly more militant is the wrong word, but they're a slightly more aggressive version of IJM. And so like they have their own K9 units and stuff like that. So, and they work specifically with the police, like on the raids and stuff.
Wow.
So we actually had somebody like, hey, I was going to support, but I decided not to because they don't like that aspect. And I was like, well, who do you think is going into the house,
Yeah.
with like, and like, you think these bad dudes are just like, oh yeah, here's the kid that, I was selling.
Yeah. I mean,
someone's got to be that person. And I'd much rather it be a person who cares about the topic than just random government official, which, could totally turn around and do it behind your back, So anyway, yeah, that confused me, but anyway, yeah, those are the two that I support, just because they're easier, more straightforward. I'm sure if it becomes a bigger deal, then we might get more specific with it, but it doesn't make sense to do that yet.
Yeah.
So
wow, that's awesome. I've been to a conference for IJM, and it's just incredible what IJM does.
they're a huge organization. It really is amazing. Yeah.
All the testimonies of people that they've saved, and they've changed their lives and given them a career path. I mean, that's just, if we could do that, the foundation could save people and give them a new life. That's what we're hoping for.
That's very cool. Because you just started in 2020, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when did you that's when the foundation started. When did you like send your first check? When was your first like real action for the school or towards the school?
We sent money, at least mom and dad and I, and Ken sent money before the foundation started for like a year, maybe. So back in 2019, we kind of started, but we opened the first foundation bank account in like March of 2020. And
Gotcha.
People started kind of joining us and donating then. So.
Gotcha. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I want to ask, how do you navigate the dichotomy of living your own life in, you're like, well, I guess hour and a half outside of Seattle. Are you in Redmond?
I'm further out than Redmond.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's in the area. How do you know?
We used to be friends with some people that were up in Bellevue, so I spent some time up there. Huh. So how do you navigate the dichotomy between, living a blessed life, and trying to care for, those who are obviously in these, horrific conditions? Because I know that I've spent a lot of time thinking about this as a topic over the last many years, and I go back and forth between investing and growing my portfolio and net worth and capability because of things I want to be able to do with my family and for my family. And, I've got dreams and aspirations, right? Mm-hmm. But there's also a part of me that goes like, why am I not just living in a hut and giving everything I possibly can to try and, help others? How do you, as someone who's doing much more than I am, how do you navigate that dichotomy?
It's difficult, because coming back from Sierra Leone, coming back to Washington, and I wanted to tell all my friends, this is the poverty over there. Aren't we blessed? And no one asked me, how was your trip? Let me listen to the struggles back there. How can I help? And so it's definitely, we are so self-centered in America, so self-centered, and I'm guilty. I am so guilty of that. And so I'm like, Lord, why do you have me here? Why am I here? Why am I not living back there? And the Lord brought a couple things to mind. The foundation, those kids wouldn't be helped today if it wasn't for us here in Washington. The Lord's using the money that we're giving to them. We got to be open and tithe and give to them. And another thing, now I don't know if this is the best example, but Abraham had, all the camels pretty much in the whole world. It's kind of silly, but God blessed him so much. And I'm not a health, wealth, and prosperity gospel. I'm not that. I'm not supporting that at all. But God puts people in different situations to help with different things. And if the Lord is using me in America to help those kids in Sierra Leone, great. If he wants me to move back to Sierra Leone, he's going to have to make it really clear, because I really don't want to do that. But I'll go, I'll go.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, well, are there any other highlights from the foundation and stories or background or anything like that it would bring you joy to highlight?
Well, I could tell a little bit about my trip back there. So we went back there and witnessed baptisms from like so many amazing kids and some people in the community. And I got bit by river flies. And so they got infected, and my legs swelled up. It got swollen and it was like oozing and it was all gross. And I went to the hospital and I asked the doctor, what do you think this bite was from? And he said, river flies. And I'm like, do river flies cause blindness? And he said, yes. I was like, could I go blind? And he said, yes. And I was like, well, what can I stop it? Can I stop myself from going blind?
Do you have some carrots? Yeah.
Yeah. And he said, yes. I'm like, okay, how can I stop it? And he said, medicine. And I said, okay, give me the medicine, please. And he said, this is only medicine that you can get here in Africa. And we were leaving to go back home in like 2 days. And he said, I can't get it in time before you go back. And I'm like, okay, so do I stay? I mean, I gotta go. And
yeah, who would have thought you needed to stay in Africa for medical help? Yeah.
Exactly. And so I kind of asked him some more questions, and apparently he was saying mectizin, which is ivermectin. Which I am one of those people that thinks ivermectin is a miracle drug. And I had some in my suitcase, and I took the ivermectin, and I'm still going to be on it for another 6 months or so, but I will not go blind. Thank you, Lord. It was just amazing. So that was a miracle that I had it right in my suitcase. And then the other miracle of my time in the hospital was I mentioned the Sierra Leone Association for the Blind. So we had.
Did we lose her?
Hi, are you there?
I am.
My internet's terrible.
Well, I mean, not to get overly excited, but that is the section where it would naturally the internet would cut out, right? So,
Totally.
um, okay, you were explaining the second part, the second element of your story.
Okay. Yes. So Sierra Leone Association for the Blind, we hadn't known about that while I was in the hospital, and we had been praying for ways to take care of the kids after they phased out of the school. And the director of the Sierra Leone Association for the Blind happened to be in the hospital while I was there. And Ken started talking with her because he's very gregarious, and started this conversation. And we are now partnering with her and helping the Sierra Leone Association for the Blind. And they make baskets and soap and rugs and cloth for clothes. And they're going to be kind of taking care of the kids after they phase out of the school. So that's a huge thing. Another miracle.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
It's interesting that a lot of people, right? America, great society, lots of stuff, right? And then we all have this whole mental health problem, blah, 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 which is to a certain extent self-serving, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or introspective at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the solutions or one of the protocols for navigating that is counting your blessings, right? But I wonder if there's something to be said for maybe also counting the ways in which you're able to bless other people. And I suspect I just thought of that now. So that's not, it's not like I've been stewing on this or anything, but I wonder if that's also, there isn't something there that can also be drawn upon. And I suspect if there are people who are struggling and don't know what to do or are feeling lost or whatever, I wonder if there's something to be said for trying to get plugged into, instead of spending a couple extra hours on your couch being depressed, maybe try and spend a couple extra hours figuring out a way to help other people through organizations like yours and whatnot, whether it's, it could be local or foreign, obviously, but I wonder if that might be efficacious.
Well, the Lord says it's better to give than to receive. And I do feel so fulfilled helping these kids, because back at the Fusion Center, I was doing so much work to help people, but I couldn't see, how I was helping them and if I was even saving their lives or not. I mean, I don't even know if I did, but the kids just love you so much. And I guess that's kind of selfish of me to want that
to be loved.
affirmation.
Yeah.
But it definitely turns the focus off you when you see these kids that have such joy in the Lord, and despite all the struggles that they're going through.
As you're navigating your personal life and whatnot, does it feel normal to live the life that you're living, which to your point is relatively countercultural? Does it feel normal, or do you feel abnormal? I don't know. What do you feel like relative to that?
I
Maybe natural. Natural is a better word. Forget the word normal. Natural.
I guess I feel natural living the way that I do now. But I'm more alert, I think, because everywhere has their struggles. Everyone has their struggles. So here in America, we deal with selfishness and money, but in Africa they deal with corruption and money too. So it's not a perfect, your life's going to be so different and amazing if you just go to Africa and live like that for a little bit. You might appreciate where you are more, but it's just the way things are. It's kind of sad, but it does help me be more aware, I guess. Yeah.
Do you find that awareness to be taxing or exhausting in any way?
I'm kind of sometimes embarrassed by it because I find that I'm judging people here in America a lot. And it's not good for me to do that. And it's also kind of a prideful thing, like, I don't know, it's just, don't spend all this time thinking about yourself when you have a perfect body, you can see. Help other people, because that's what God calls us to do. And so I judge people for wallowing in misery that they've created on their own when they're, when they could do so much more for the Lord. And it's kind of embarrassing, but yeah. So
What sorts of things outside of the foundation and whatnot make you happy, bring you joy, etc.?
yeah. I love my new church that I'm going to. It's a great church, and I'm getting a little bit more involved there, going to young adults groups and all that. I just finished a year's worth of leading Bible Study Fellowship, BSF, which is great. And I love going to the gym, just kind of being out there.
What sort of workout stuff do you do?
Oh, it's probably not good, but I do like the the bench press and the squats and the deadlifts and everything. And
So you're on the weightlifting side of things.
yeah, I don't like
Nice.
cardio. But what about you? What do you go to the gym and all that?
Well, for a long time, I was going for an hour and a half a day, and I was playing soccer 3 to 5 times a week. So I
Wow.
was like, after I worked out, like it was crazy. So
Huh.
I used to be super into it.
Yeah.
I kind of took a step back because my body kind of smacked me around a little bit.
Cool.
But uh, but it's still a learning experience. And now I've been slowly building out my own like personal gym stuff. So like in
Nice.
my, I live in my condo, right? So like in my living room or part of my living room, the entryway, I've got like a rubber mat, and I've got like my barbell so I could do deadlifts, and I've got, my bands and whatever else. Kettlebells have been
Yeah.
very, very great.
Hmm.
Um, but my, my plan has been actually to move down to Texas this year, hopefully,
Hmm.
and move into a spot. I'll rent out my condo here, and then I'll move down there, and hopefully into like a house of some sort where I can like build out a whole thing in the garage, because so that way I can get back into doing squats. And then I want to like get like a tire and have like a sledgehammer for the tire, because like I want to get into like really dynamic stuff. And so that's what I would like to do at some point. But yeah, so yes, I do work out, and I've been getting much more consistent the last couple weeks with getting back in the swing of things. It's nice that the weather's nice, that's helpful. I can go outside, kick the soccer ball around, run around in the sun a little bit.
Oh, that's fun.
But yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's cool. So you have that, and what other things do you like to do that are fulfilling to you?
Well, I mean, obviously I've got the projects that I named. I have a
Mhm.
couple others that I didn't, just because they're smaller or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, I I've been trying to do, because I live by myself, I do my own thing, I've worked remotely, et cetera, et cetera. I've been trying to be consistent about investing in the relationships that I do have. So yeah, I've got one friend that lives a couple hours away, so we'll try and be intentional about connecting. He'll often come up and stay with me for a weekend, things like that. I've been camping lately. Since October, I got back into camping. Since I moved here, I haven't done any. And so I've been loving that. Found a spot where you don't actually have to pay, and it's decently rural, where you feel like you're actually out there, not just, surrounded by a few million people. And then trying to do things like movie nights with my sister and her friend. Um, I'll play Call of Duty with my brothers because they're still in Oregon. And so I was trying to figure out a way for us to connect a couple years ago. I was like, well, I'll get them set up with like an Xbox and stuff. And that way we can like game together, even though, I live 3,000 miles away.
Oh,
So that's been like an easy way to, fun way to hang out and once or twice a week.
oh.
And then I consume a ton of like YouTube content and just general content on 100 different topics. So I do spend a lot of time consuming different podcasts and YouTube channels and like just all kinds of stuff like that. There's a lot of inbound. So yeah. And then I've been trying to get more consistent with reading just because it's so hard. Once you're an adult, reading is so much harder to be consistent with.
Yeah.
And so I've been trying to be consistent with that and continually working on that. But so yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, reading is it's not easy, to sit there and concentrate.
It's you go from scrolling on your phone to, I suppose you're not on social media as much. So that must help a little bit.
Yes.
So
A little bit. Sometimes I just leave my phone and go away.
Yeah, and see, I always be like, oh, what if someone important's calling me? Which is not ever true, but just in case. I feel like, oh, what if I get a notification of something important's happening? Like I want to be engaged. I like that action. So it's like, I want to be plugged in.
Yeah.
This morning, for instance, though, I left my phone inside and I actually had my devotions outside where it was nice and warm this morning. So I've been getting better about that, but yeah, it's a good thing to leave your phone in the other room.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Cool. Well, first of all, thank you for sharing about everything.
Yeah.
And I will definitely, I'll link the website down below. Do you want me to link any personal social media things like that? Or do you want me to link I think you guys have an Instagram because I think I was looking at it. Do you want me to link that stuff down below instead? Because I don't think you're very active, if at all, other than through those mediums. So is that what you would prefer?
I think so. Yeah, the foundation versus my stuff. Yeah, that'd probably be good. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, of course. And then if people are interested in the foundation at all, who knows who may someday be listening, then what is I assume there's like a contact form or something like that on the website that they can, if they want to reach out, that they can?
Yeah, I don't think we have a contact form, but my email is on there. And I can't even change my name here and just put my email address, which is, I check that every day. So if anyone wants to do that, there's my little email address right there.
Hailey at veritasteam.com. All right.
Yep.
Cool. Sounds good. I'll make sure that stays highlighted. Cool. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day and being willing to come on. It's always exciting for me when someone's like, yeah, I'm down to come on. I'm like, yes. So I appreciate that. Yeah. Well, it's you're doing something different than many other people, and it's interesting. And I like listening to and learning from and connecting with people that are doing interesting things. So it was certainly my pleasure.
Oh, mine too. This is great.
Good. I'm glad. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And if people are interested, the information is down below.
Thank you.